Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to tap into your power to manifest the happiness, success, and fulfillment that you desire. I am your host, Niajae, the Upper Limit Coach. I am here to dismantle your limiting beliefs and remove the blocks so you can confidently live your life's purpose, because life is meant to be abundant. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? If you're joining me for the first time, M&Ms, although they're amazing candies, actually stands for magical manifestors, because we are manifesting by default with our thoughts, with our energy, with our actions. So making sure that you are manifesting something magical. So today's guest is Bron Lea. So excited. She's joining us from Australia. So super fun accent. I'm really excited to talk to her. But before we dive into what she does, Bron, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Oh, abundance means to me really the felt experience of life and being open to receiving. I think we are constantly surrounded by abundance. We have everything we need in any given moment. It is really about being present to receive and open to receive. So for me, this year in particular has been massively abundant in that I'm creating a new modality, and everything that I have needed for its creation has come to me, including an incredible network of people, of practitioners that we're training, of, colleagues, of just people, I need something and it's right there at my fingertips. To me, that is abundance. It's having that flow of beautiful reciprocal give and receive energy kind of on tap. And, sometimes we receive things and we're not quite sure why, but it's all part of it. And, it's part of the magic of it. So to me, it's truly a magical expression of our creative self.
I absolutely love it. Yes, I agree that everything we desire is literally at our fingertips. So it's just removing the blocks and the limiting beliefs in order to open ourselves for that allowing. Yes, I love it.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's dive into what you do. So you help people resolve complex trauma, overcome limited patterns of past programming, reconnect to their guidance and their higher self. So I absolutely love that. So tell us your story. How did you get involved in this? How did you create this modality? Tell us everything.
Wow. Okay. How long have you got? I'll try and keep it in a nutshell version. So I've had my own journey through healing from complex trauma. I was actually diagnosed with PTSD, chronic ongoing PTSD from childhood when I was in my 40s. My body was giving out on me. I had chronic fatigue. I had fibromyalgia. I was in constant pain. I'd had 3 children, all postnatal depression. I'd been on antidepressants. I had a partner with long-term PTSD from his career as an ambulance paramedic. And I was essentially caring for our 3 children. All of our kids are on the autism spectrum, and our youngest has type 1 diabetes. So I was caring for them, caring for my partner. I was trying to work at the same time. So I was a freelance writer for a long time. So I was doing that as well. And it just got to a point where I thought I was going to collapse. And I thought, well, if that happens, then everything collapses. So I took myself off to an integrative GP, and which is kind of like a doctor who works with various modalities. So they integrate, natural medicine and natural healing with standard sort of traditional medicine, I guess. So I went to her and sort of explained all of the symptoms. And at that point, I decided I was going to go on a disability pension. We have things called disability pensions here. I'm not sure how it works over there. And I could just sit on that, and at least I wouldn't have to worry about working, and I could just focus on taking care of the kids and trying to keep myself upright. I was constantly sick. I got everything. My immune system was dreadful. And it was kind of the story of my life. I had anxiety a lot. I had a lot of physical illnesses. I had a lot of accidents. I had all of these patterns myself. You know, definitely limited scarcity mindset. If you want to talk limited scarcity mindset, you know, I ended up bankrupting us essentially with a failed not-for-profit venture at one point. So by the time I got to this GP, I was a bit of a mess, and she started asking me about my history, and I just broke down in her chair and, you know, was sobbing and talking all about this stuff that from my past that I kind of had thought I dealt with. I'd been in the healing business for a good 25 years, you know. I was enlightened and awakened and all that sort of stuff, but still, obviously, physically, I was not in that place. And she said to me, diagnosed me with PTSD. She said, look, the symptoms that you're experiencing are symptoms of this unresolved trauma in your body. She sent me off to a psychologist / Buddhist nun who practiced a healing modality specifically around trauma resolution. And within the first session with her, it took me a little while to get there. I was entrenched a little bit in my victimhood, I think. Within the first session with her, all of my pain resolved. I had energy. It was literally like a miracle. From where I had been when I walked in to 2 hours later when I walked out, I could not believe it. I just was like, oh my goodness, I'm back. Suddenly I remembered, you know, who I am, and I have energy, and I'm not that person who's constantly suffering and in pain. So that was kind of the tipping point for me. I decided I wanted to get back into my healing work. Like I said, I'd sort of stepped away from it to do writing, and I thought, no, this is what I'm meant to do. So I trained in that specific modality, and then various circumstances caused me to step away from that community. I was very involved with it for a while. I practiced with a lot of clients worldwide. And then I started to see just ways in which it's not just enough for us to resolve our trauma. We have to kind of go one step further. Resolving the trauma is essential to release us from the emotional charge of our past and to help us move through that. But there's more to it than that. So I would work with clients and have these incredible outcomes within sort of 4 weeks, 5 weeks, where all symptoms of anxiety and everything would disappear. But then it was kind of like, well, where to from here? And so I started exploring other things. I started exploring consciousness. I started exploring alchemy and all sorts of things, and ended up creating what is now called Star Collective. And STAR is STARR, which stands for Storyteller Alchemy Rapid Recoding. So this is now... it's going to be, the vision is a global community of practice. Like I said, we're training already 8 people. We'll have 8 practitioners who'll be fully qualified and certified in this as a healing modality by the end of the year. And we foresee not just creating a beautiful modality, but also a community of support that sits behind it, because the journey of consciousness and deeper awareness and connection and manifesting and abundance and all of that is an ongoing one. Mm-hmm. You never get to the end. Mm-hmm. I say to people, when you get to the end, that's when you no longer need the human meat suit. So, you know, don't wish for the end, because it's fun to be here in the human form. And, you know, it's such a privilege and an honor, I feel, to be here in this space we're in right now. And I know it sounds a little bit weird because so much is going on in the world and there is so much trauma in the world, but I think we have such capacity and scope to heal through this now and to really realize our full potential of who we are. And that's what STAR is all about.
I absolutely love it. I love it. So rapid recoding, I feel like I know a lot about different modalities, but what is the alchemy part? And so if you had to explain to someone this modality and how it works, how would you explain that?
Okay, so great question, obviously. So it works by kind of resetting things for ourselves. So what happens is when we're born as super conscious. We're born as this divine being, right? I always say to people, babies are born as divinity. That's why you look at a baby and you think, oh, you just feel it in your heart. You feel that connection to the divine when you look at a baby. And that's how we're born. We're born as this super conscious creator, right? Babies create everything they need. They don't have to go and get a job or, hustle or anything else. It's just all there for them. And so we're born as this, but then what happens is the self-conscious and the unconscious starts to develop its own kind of program to try to keep us safe and orientate us in the world, right? So we know where we fit and where we belong, and we feel safe in the world, because ultimately that's what we intuitively, instinctively want to feel, is safe. So what happens is the self-conscious starts to become a problem. I call it the problem seeker, the self-conscious, the problem solver, the unconscious, and then the creative solution is from the superconscious, right? But we get stuck from our past stories, our past trauma, our past experiences. We get stuck in those past stories. We get anchored to them. There are parts of us that get stuck back there. There's, the 5-year-old who dad left home, she gets stuck back at that moment, feeling rejected, abandoned, feeling that grief, feeling all of those things, feeling angry. Particularly, we have this sense of anger when these things happen to us, and feeling powerless. Her power was taken away in that moment. So these experiences that we have are cumulative, and they don't have to be huge. People think of trauma and they think of, it has to be something major, but it can be, dad leaving, or, it can even be someone saying something to us that creates this emotional response in us that doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel good. That is enough to create trauma. So we have these cumulative aspects of ourselves, the 5-year-old who feels it. We have the 12-year-old that maybe was bullied at school. We have the 18-year-old who was, something happened with a boyfriend that wasn't particularly nice. We have, particularly in patterns of abuse and things like that. What's happening is we're constantly defaulting into these past stories, and it's because our ego, the self-conscious, wants to make sense of the world. So it tries to seek out a problem everywhere it is, and generally our problem is a deficiency we learned about ourselves. That becomes our programming, right? So these are the limiting beliefs that we take on. We start to think, dad leaves at 5. We think, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve love. Everyone abandons me. Everything ends in disaster. It's all my fault. We end up with this sort of catalogue of beliefs that become our programming. And so in the present moment, what we often do is we're defaulting. We don't even know it. We're not aware of it. The unconscious mind is responsible for about 95% of everything we are doing at any given time. We are only consciously aware of 5% generally. So we think we're in control consciously. The human thinks it's in control, but really the unconscious is running the show.
Wow, 5%.
Yeah. And we're not aware of these processes that are going on, right? Because they're not at a conscious level, they're at an unconscious level. So the unconscious is making decisions for us, or guiding our decisions based on what it knows. And all it knows is past programming. It doesn't have any orientation to this present moment. The ego, the self-conscious and the unconscious orientates itself to the past only. So we make decisions, we end up in circumstances based on our past, based on who we used to be, not who we are right now in this immediate moment. Which is why, and as soon as our attention is in our past, we're recreating our past. Wherever our attention is, that's where our energy is. And so we are continuing to bring it forward into our present. So the whole idea behind star, where the alchemy comes from, is there's the black, the white and the red in alchemical, very rudimentary explanation, but in alchemical practice and philosophy and understanding and teaching, you have these 3 colors that in turn you can use to make the gold, at the end, right? The wonderful magic. So the black is a symbol of the unconscious or the subconscious. It's the deeper consciousness. That's why we call it shadow work, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The white is representative of the superconscious, the higher self. And the red is representative of the will.
Mm.
Now, the will is our power, and that is our power to choose. That is the greatest power we have, is the power of choice. As I said, most people are walking around defaulting into unconscious reaction. All of their choices are coming from this unconscious programming. So their past has all of the power over their present.
Mm.
So no matter what they want to make happen in their present, if that doesn't align with those past stories, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're constantly unconsciously defaulting back into those past stories, and that's where your choices are coming from, you are not standing in your power in the present using that will. It's kind of like, I always say to people, you wield your magic. If you look at the word wield,
Mm-hmm.
it has will in it. It is willing the magic to happen.
So powerful.
Yeah. So in this process, we actually use the white light of the superconscious to go into the darkness, the shadow of the unconscious self. We get to know what's in there. We have to know what is sitting in the unconscious. We can't, just pretend it's not there. We can't just be like, oh, that was my past. And, and people say, oh, just forget about it. The past is the past, just leave it alone. But if you're constantly defaulting into your past, well, your past is your present.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we need to release ourselves from that. And this is what this work is about. We shine a light on what is happening in that darkness. Often people are too scared to do that work. It's, there's monsters in the closet that I've been avoiding. There's the inner child that I've sort of locked away and she's got too much pain and I don't want to deal with her. But when we start to light up these parts of ourselves, we can see that they're just sitting in the emotional charge of these old experiences. It's not who they are, and the programming is not who they are. I say to people, no one is born. You don't look at a little baby and think that baby's worthless, that baby's useless, that baby deserves to be abandoned. No one thinks that. We're not born with these things true for us. They are not true for us. It's the programming that we take on and then we live them as our truth and they become our identity. So, we are all born as abundant beings. I truly believe that. We are all born. There is so much. It is endless. It is limitless, the potential for us to create. And so the process here is using that will, wielding the magic, unlocking, first of all, and reconnecting people with the magic they have in themselves, because we all have this divine superconscious power. We all have limitless potential. So it's about removing the resistance to that in the form of what's happening in the unconscious, bringing awareness to the fact that this unconscious programming exists, because guess what? No matter how good you get at the work, no matter how much work you do, there's still always a story. And the human self will still constantly be seeking out that safety net, particularly if we are making strides to better ourselves. If we're going for something and it looks big and scary and we've never done it before, the human, the ego will go, hang on a minute. Oh, that looks a bit scary. You sure you want to go there? And it will try and orientate us to our past and create a roadblock for us to creating what we need to create in that present moment. So it's about having the awareness of these processes as well. So it's intended to be very empowering. We're transmuting past negative, toxic energy into the power to move forward into our future now that we want to consciously create.
Wow. Really powerful. So what would you say is the length of time that someone would go through this healing modality?
Generally within 5 to 6 weeks. I've just been working, obviously this is very new and it's been evolving quite significantly. The first client who's been going through it with me in its pure form as it is now, with all of the things that we have included now, she's had a total of 3 sessions with me, and we've done an audio. So the sessions are very specific. We first of all deepen our connection to all levels of consciousness, because frequently people have been very disconnected from that super conscious awareness for a very long time. And again, that happens through our programming. So it's about bringing them to an understanding and awareness of the unconscious and what's happening there, also connecting them into super conscious. So this is kind of the way in which we do it. And that way we are journeying into the unconscious to do this work where it needs to happen, but we're also using super conscious to help us with that work, to guide us. So, and we're awakening and deepening the connection as we go. So that's kind of where we start. And then we create a safe space. Often people haven't felt that they've had a safe space all of their life. So it's really important to give people that safe space so that they can take the journey feeling that no matter what happens, they're safe, they're loved, they're accepted. It's, you know, everything's okay. They can express, they have permission to take this journey however they need to. So that's really important. Then we work on the programming, and this is where the recoding happens. So we actually introduce them to what's called the Soul's Library. This is what we use in STAR. So we take them into a visualization of the Soul's Library, and we do a lot of the work in this space. And the Soul's Library is literally the collection of stories that they've been accumulating since their moment of creation, really. So we connect them in with that, again, making them aware of what's sitting in their unconscious. And we do work to, it's almost like a rebirthing back to the divinity that they were created as. So this is where the recoding happens. We recode out of the human ego, self-conscious and unconscious programming back into the coding of the divine soul's blueprint. So the destiny that we were born with.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Wow. So I know that some of the listeners may be like, well, that was a lot.
Yes, yes,
So
I know.
I would highly recommend going back and listening to that again, just because I think that we are such amazing dynamic beings, and to know that this is possible is really amazing. So just that awareness of like, you don't have to live this way. If you feel like you're in pain and you have a void and you are not happy and living an abundant, fulfilling life, there are options out there. So I think that people who know that there are healing modalities out there know, and then there's people that are not aware that they're stuck in a victim mindset, or they have these like severe subconscious blocks. So what are some ways that people can identify that they have a victim mindset, or there's unconscious patterns that's blocking abundance or happiness?
Yeah, good question. Look, the very first thing is to look at what is happening in your life that you don't particularly like, that thing that you really want to change and that you've tried to change over and over and over and over again. So for instance, you know, people who want to lose weight, this is a really simple one. You know, they'll desperately want to lose weight. They'll do everything possible. They'll take all the diets. They'll, you know, do all the fad things and everything else. But there's a core belief there that says something like, generally around weight, I find with people, not safe to be seen. So we use the extra weight as kind of, it's almost like a shield, right? If I'm carrying this, people can't see me. So what will happen is they might lose the weight, but then they'll put it all back on again. Or they might lose all of it, except, you know, they can never quite get to that perfect goal weight that they want to reach. And it's not because they're necessarily doing the wrong things physically, but it is because their body is, their unconscious mind is blocking them. It's saying, no, it's not safe. It's not safe for you to be visible. So you can't do that, right? So it's about starting to become aware of our patterns. What are our patterns? If people have patterns of scarcity, you know, if you constantly struggling with money to pay the bills, if you are constantly, you might get money in and then it's all gone again. You create all of this abundance and then suddenly it goes. And so you have this sort of roller coaster of, oh, here it all is. But the problem with that kind of abundance is it's the past experience that we're defaulting into. We're not in this present moment going, wow, look at all that I have and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm here present in this moment enjoying it. Often we'll get it and we might think, oh, well, I can't spend any of that, and people will hoard it, and then something will happen and they'll lose it all, because again, they're defaulting back into a past, and the past will always try to tell you, I told you so, right? So it's always kind of trying to prove its point and keep you safe by going, look, I told you that would happen, so don't do that, right? That's not a good idea. So really, I would say to people is look at your patterns, look at those things that you've considered problems in your life that you've been really trying to fix. And when we're trying to fix the problems, it's really interesting because they become bigger problems. Because people try to fix the problem based on the focus of the problem itself. And all that does is create a bigger problem. It just feeds it. So, look at the things that you've been constantly trying to fix about yourself, about your life, trying to improve and finding you're just not getting there. You just can't seem to, break through that barrier. Where there are those patterns, there is unconscious programming that is going on in the background. And then you can start to actually become aware of it. You can become aware of where you're making choices from, right? So for people who perhaps aren't ready to, dive into a healing modality or something like that, or, just kind of starting out on this journey, one of the big ways that we can see when we're defaulting into past things is, the blame game is a great one, right? When we go into the blame game, oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of that. Oh, it's because of how I had a crappy childhood. It's because I wasn't taught about money. Oh, it's because, I wasn't taught how to eat properly. It's because. When it's because of all of these external circumstances, we're trying to gain a sense of control based on the unconscious mind. So if we can be aware that we're doing that, hang on a minute, I'm grasping, I'm trying to make it all about out there. As soon as we become aware of these things, and it takes work, it takes practice, right? Because we just default without even realizing we're doing it. It's habit. But I also say to people, replace some of those habits with ritual. I talk about replacing the habitual with ritual. Because ritual, the beautiful thing about ritual, it's like prayer, it's whatever ritual feels right for you, journaling, meditation. The beautiful thing about ritual is it takes us into this present moment and brings our awareness back to ourselves. Even prayer, like we are praying for something we desperately want. We are present in that moment, connecting in, going, please, I want this in this moment. It might seem like a desperate plea, but it's actually a ritual of just connecting in and acknowledging there is a higher power guiding me. And if I connect with that and make myself open to that, then the answers will come, the solutions will come. So just creating a bit of ritual in our life, not just getting up in the morning and starting off our day in habit, which we generally do. We all get out the same side of the bed and we get up, and most people get up and they check their phone and,
yep.
We do all that. Whereas if you take a moment when you wake up to just move into a ritual for yourself, easy meditation, 5-10 minutes, doesn't have to be long. Just sitting with yourself. One of the ones I like is just walking outside with my feet on the earth and grounding into my day and just setting my intentions, right? How do I want my day to feel? Not necessarily what do I want to tick off my to-do list, just how do I want to feel today? Even noticing how I feel when I wake up. How am I feeling? Okay, so I'm going to work with my body today. I'm going to work with where I'm at. I'm going to meet myself where I'm at. This starts to bring this deeper awareness. Know thyself is a great one. And ritual is a wonderful way to start to know thyself more and more, because we stop living out of the habit of who we think we are, and we start connecting in ritualistically with who we are right now in this present moment.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's definitely something that I recommend checking in first thing in the morning before you get on your phone, before you check your email, before you get on social media. Check in, ask yourself, how do I feel? How do I feel mentally, physically, and emotionally? And what do I need to feel my best today? What do I need to feel good? And doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's a powerful practice to incorporate into your life. I highly recommend that.
Can you maintain alignment no matter what is going on around you? Can you maintain inner peace no matter what is going on in the world? Can you practice self-compassion when you make a mistake? I am Niajae, your conscious accountability partner, helping you follow your bliss, tap into abundance, and fully embrace your sovereignty. I am here to remind you not to settle. You are worthy. You are enough. The world needs your magic. Join Abundant and Aligned Society for motivational texts, guided meditations, and sound therapy recordings sent directly to your phone. Click the link for more details, and remember, abundance is your birthright.
Know that for me personally, like my morning routine shifts depending upon what I feel like I need that day. So some days it may just be like, okay, take some deep breaths. Some days I may play my sound bowls in the morning. Some days it is meditation. So for me, doing the same thing every day, eventually I kind of get, I'm like, I need to switch it
becomes
up.
another habit, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I have all these tools in my tool belt to where, however I'm feeling, I have something I can pull out and use.
And that's perfect. That's exactly what I would recommend to people, you know. And again, it's about being guided by yourself. Like, don't look to a guru to tell you, you know, this is what you should do. Nobody has the answers aside from you. I say this to people all the time, you know, and that's why with what we do, it's not about us sitting there going, well, here's a magic bullet, or here's a magic potion, or here's a magic pill. You know, it's about allowing the person to learn who they are and get in touch with themselves. And it's, you know, as you say, you want to meet yourself where you're at, and what feels right for me in that moment, you know. And meditation might feel good for you one morning, and then the next morning it might be your sound bowls, you know, and that's perfect. That's exactly how you want to do it, because that's connecting and listening to yourself.
Yes, I love it. So if someone is trying to understand their soul's blueprint, like, or first, what does that even mean? And how can someone tap into their soul's blueprint?
Yeah, okay. So we are all born. There's a fabulous book, if anyone's interested in it, called The Soul's Code, by an author, James Hillman. He's actually, he's passed now, but he was a Yale trained psychologist or something. He was very high up in the psychology world. So it's interesting that he's written this book, because it's literally all about the fact that we are born connected to this divine energy. Right? We come into the world with this divine blueprint. It's kind of like, I guess some people would call it the soul's contract. You know, we talk about karma, we talk about soul's contracts, things like that. This is essentially what this is. It's the divinity, the divine spark, the unique, James Hillman calls it the acorn, which I love, that we come in with. So we each come in with this thing inside of us to grow and to create and to share with the world, right? Our own unique genius. This is what the superconscious directs us toward. The superconscious knows what our destiny looks like, what our divine blueprint looks like, what our calling looks like, right? So this is that thing that we're called to do. We feel compelled, you know, we just keep coming back to it all the time, you know, or we don't do it and we feel crushed that we didn't recognize that dream, you know, and we have those regrets. This is the soul's code and the soul's calling. And it's interesting because a lot of people would think, oh, that's, you know, that's spiritual woo-woo, right? But it's actually the psyche. It is, you know, scientifically, this is the psyche that we come in with, the personality, the unique individual identity that we come in with, because we talk about how we're all unique. But, you know, in traditional psychology, we want to package everyone into little boxes and say, well, this is how it's supposed to be and supposed to look, right? And so if you're not sitting in that box at that time, then there's something a bit wrong with you. You've got, you're a deviant, you know, people used to be called deviants, or they, you know, got diagnosed with all sorts of things. And we still see it, you know, we see a lot of kids, I think, who are coming through with this incredible will to express their divinity. We spoke about the will before. This is our power. And these kids are so powerful in their will and wanting to express their identity. And I see so many of them, you know, oh, your oppositional defiance disorder, your ADD, your autism, your this, your that, right? And so because they don't fit into the compartment, right? They don't fit into the boxes. But we're not meant to. None of us are meant to fit into a box. We're meant to create our own, right? And we're meant to, not even a box, you know, with no limitations. We are, I say to people, you bring a unique golden thread with you into this world. And that is your unique thread to weave into the collective tapestry. Right? We are all born with that. And that is the soul's blueprint, the soul's code. That is the truth of, some people call it I am, the I am. And that's essentially what it is. It is the truth of who I am. And there are no limits to that. And the truth of who I am is just exactly who I choose to be, because choice, again, is our power in this moment. Based on what feels right for me, based on what feels good for me. Because what feels right for me and what feels good for me, what brings me joy, what brings me the abundance, that's when I know I am living in the coding, the soul's coding, not the programming. So it's like the programming comes along, the human programming comes along. And even we carry epigenetically up to 7 generations worth of trauma in our programming from our ancestry.
Wow.
So this is the problem, you know, when we talk about, oh, why can't people just get over that? Why can't whole cultures just get over what happened to them, you know? And this is a big topic at the moment, right? Why can't people just get over it and move on? But that wasn't me who did that. And, you know, and rah, rah, rah. And we can't, like everyone's sort of up in arms about the anger that's being expressed and the pain that's being expressed. Well, that has been carried for those 7 generations. That is a trauma that has not been dealt with for a long time. And so, you know, we end up stuck in those places. And so, you know, that sort of programming is what comes in over the top of our own divinity. And this is where all of our limitation comes from. You know, this is where all of our resistance comes from. This is where the conflict comes from. You know, and this is why you can't just tell someone to get over it and it's done. It is sitting in us, and we need to address the fact that it's sitting there. And again, you know, if we can look at this at an individual level of the soul's code and the psyche, and we can look at the collective psyche of humanity right now. And we can clearly see that there's a lot of old programming there that is still sitting there, that is still determining our present. You know, we are very much, our history, our past is very much with us here in the present right now, because we haven't dealt with it as a collective. We haven't dealt with it individually a lot of the time. Again, we're just defaulting into the unconscious. That programming then is taking over, and it's not allowing people to realize their beautiful divinity, what they have to create, their limitless potential. You know, this client, I realized I segued before, but this client that I was mentioning who's just going through this, and we're 3 sessions in, you know, when I met with her the other day, I was blown away. You know, she was talking to me about her levels of consciousness, her awareness, and she's saying things to me like, you know I have something to create and contribute to this world. I know that I am limitless. You know, and that is what my hope for people is to realize that they have this incredible divine spark within them, this beautiful, limitless potential to create. I always say to people, this is our heaven. This is meant to be our heaven here on earth. we can create that.
Yes, yes. That is what this podcast is all about, realizing that we are here for a reason and stepping into your power, stepping into your sovereignty, and being willing to stand in your truth. I think that there are some people that get used to the pain and used to the anger. Absolutely. And used to that space because it's what they know, and releasing those pre-programmings and releasing the pain, they don't know what the other part feels like. So I feel like that uncertainty actually scares people. There's so many people even right now that want to stay angry and you know, outraged. And what would you recommend to someone who, and I do believe that there's some people that are just not ready to change. They're not ready to grow. They're not ready to evolve. And that is okay. You know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But if there's someone that's like, okay, this doesn't really feel right, what would you say to someone who's like, just kind of on the fence, like, okay, something's not feeling right, but I don't really know what to do? What is that next step for them?
Okay, so really good question, another great question. So we need to work through these emotions first and foremost. So we need to acknowledge, first of all, that these emotions, even when we get angry about what we see happening in the world, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, in my line of work particularly, I get a lot of people who identify as empaths. You know, I identified as an empath, and to me, it's almost become this other kind of cloak of victimhood, unfortunately, where it's like, oh, well, I just feel things because it's that the world is a hard place, and I feel all of that because it's the world. Right. And I was there. I say that without any judgment whatsoever because I was there. Right. The pain of the world was my pain. I took all of that on. But what we're actually doing is projecting out the unresolved pain and emotional charge of our past that we haven't healed through yet, that we haven't acknowledged. You know, like I spoke about before, there are parts of us who are sitting still immersed in that anger. You know, I talk about trauma loops. We get parts of us who get stuck in these trauma loops. And it's like the trauma is actually happening to them right now, right? And if we're triggered by an emotion of some kind, and that brings that trauma loop into the sort of depths of the unconscious awareness, then suddenly, you know, we feel like that's happening to us right now. And we're not consciously aware of that. But there's a part of us who is feeling the anger of that moment back then, the fear of that moment back then, whatever it might be. Most of this stuff stems from fear. Pretty much everything comes from fear. It's the one primal response we have. And attached to that fear is the anger, right? The righteous anger. We need the anger because that is a part of our fight, flight, freeze mechanism, right? So in order to keep ourselves safe, when we feel fear, then the next natural response is a surge of anger, this righteous, like, right, I've got to like take somebody down, or I've got to run, you know, whatever it is. But we have to have that surge in order to protect us. So it's like a safety switch, if you like. But because we've all become very, very good at defaulting into fight, flight, freeze, not because there's some necessarily real threat to us happening in the immediate moment, because we've become used to it. Our bodies have become used to it. So the anger is a normal response. And that's why we see a lot of anger, because a lot of people are in fear, and fear generates anger, right? So what we need to do is actually acknowledge that the anger we are feeling is coming from within us. The sense of injustice is coming from within us. There's a part of us who has experienced this, who has felt powerless, who feels the anger of that and needs to express it. We've repressed it, particularly in our world and our culture, particularly for women. And I don't take away from men because there's problems there as well. But for women in particular, it's shameful to get angry. You know, that's not how little girls behave. You know, we hear it all the time in our culture. Don't yell and scream. That's not how little girls behave. You know, when little girls get angry, they're told, don't get angry, right? That you can't do that. So we have all of these processes shut down. We switch off from them. We see them as shameful. If I do that, I'm a bad person. And so we've got all of this repressed emotional charge, namely fear, anger, disappointment, grief, and guilt and shame. They're the main ones. And so when something triggers us, one of those things will come up. This is why when people have severe PTSD, they often have rage with the PTSD, because they are very easily triggered and they've got so much repressed emotion just sitting there all bottled up. It just comes out, unconscious reaction. So the first thing is to be aware of where this is coming from. And, you know, yes, empathetically, we do feel things from other people. Absolutely. We share that energetic connection. But first and foremost, we need to look at our emotional responses and think, where is this coming from me? Is there something unresolved here? I can guarantee it's always, there's something unresolved. You know, it's my little child needs a hug. You know, my inner child needs to be acknowledged. I haven't acknowledged her for a long time. I've forgotten how to play with her, how to connect with her. She's been sitting there stuck in those stories, feeling upset, ashamed, guilty, you know, grieving, disappointed. All the expectations that she had never arose, angry, scared, right? So the first thing we need to do is acknowledge that these feelings are our feelings. And then we need to decide that we want to work through them. We want to, first of all, allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to feel the feelings, obviously in a healthy way, right? It's not, when we go out and we express the anger by, you know, getting violent and hurting people and doing all that sort of stuff, we're expressing the anger still from a victim mindset. Right? We're not standing in our power and expressing that anger in a way that is going to allow us to move through it, to get it out of us. You know, it's been sitting there stagnant. Energies are supposed to just move through us. They're not supposed to stick and stay there. You know, Rumi the poet has a beautiful expression of this with, you know, the house analogy. We are like a guest house, right? And these emotions and experiences come and they spend some time and they go again. But what's happened is things like the anger and the fear and the guilt and the grief and the shame and all of these things, we've allowed them to set up shop in our house. They've become permanent residents, you know, and I say to people, they're sitting on your couch, you know, like this, they're eating all your food, they're watching your TV, right? They're running up your bills and yeah, and they're toxic. They're not good for you. And yeah, we let them stay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with David Hawkins' map of consciousness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are all the low vibrations. The
Absolutely.
guilt and the shame. Yeah, those are the low vibrations. And so I think our job is to raise our vibration and try. And I think that there is a lot of spiritual bypassing. So people try to go from a place of shame to love, but there's so many vibrations in between there. So even if your next step may be neutrality, instead of trying to go straight to love or enlightenment, your next step may be neutrality, but that is a step up from shame or guilt. So yeah, really powerful. So I can talk about this all day, but we do have to we do have to wrap it up soon. So final question is, what is your top tip for living an abundant life?
Oh, that's a big one. Wow. My top tip, I wish you had given me some time to prepare this one. No, speaking from the present moment, I guess my top tip would really be, again, just know thyself, know who you are, and not who you think you are, but know who you are at that deeper level. Really connect in with that divinity, because that's the key to all of the abundance. Our soul's calling, our soul's code. When we are giving from that place, then we will receive everything we could possibly need and more to continue that cycle of giving and receiving. That's what abundance is. It's just that beautiful flow, that balance, that constant give and receive that goes on between energy, right? So I think, you know, just really start to become more aware of where you're living from. If you feel like, you know, life isn't the way you imagined it, you envisioned it, and there's something more for you, then pay attention to that feeling. honor that feeling and start to allow yourself to connect in deeper with yourself. You know, don't run away from yourself. Don't hide from yourself. Don't hide from your feelings. Those feelings, you're here to feel them, so that's a part of your gift, right? Because the more we feel those experiences, the more we're feeling that for the whole human collective. And if we can feel those experiences and then transmute that into, you know, like you were saying, moving out of those lower vibrational energies, we are giving in abundance then, and we will receive in abundance. So really know who you are at your deepest core. Know who you are at the truth of self. Reconnect with that beautiful divine being that you were born as, and live in that as much as you possibly can. Make your choices from that space as much as you possibly can. Be present as much as you possibly can. I always say to people, it's called present for a reason. If you're not present, you won't receive the presents, right? So be present. If you're always defaulting into the past, we miss the presents that come to us.
Yeah.
But when we're present, we're open to receive, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So I guess really being aware of who you are is, for me, the key.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. So where can people find you online?
So Star Collective is our Facebook page. We're currently building a website, which will be starcollective.com, but that's coming. It's under construction. Otherwise, they can reach out to me, just Bron Lea at chooselifehealing.com is my email address. And chooselifehealing.com is my personal platform. But yeah, Bronwyn Lea on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. There's not too many Bronwyn Lees or Bron Lees out there, I don't think. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with anyone if they want to have further conversation and yeah, find out more. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you for coming. So I will have all of your links in the show notes. So definitely reach out to her if you are experiencing trauma, or if you're interested in being a practitioner, because I have a lot of coaches that listen to my podcast. So there may be someone that wants to learn this modality to spread the healing. And that's what I think we need, more healers.
Yes, we absolutely do. That's why I've been called to do just this right here in this moment in time.
Yes, I think it's amazing. I think it's a really amazing modality, combining different things that's going to be really transformational for people.
Oh, hugely so. Like I said, I mean, this client already is just blowing me away. I kind of thought, wow, I've just fast tracked everything I did over years and years in 6 weeks. So, which is exactly what we want. And yeah, I totally agree. I think the world needs more healing and it's ready for it.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing your part.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I appreciate you getting the message out there and the word out there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.